right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our regularly scheduled Zoning Advisory Commission meeting. It is November 2nd. I call this meeting to order. Sheena, would you please take roll? Or Travis, excuse me.
Yep. Christ,
Here.
Kemp,
Here.
Mulligan,
Here.
Norton,
Here.
Russell,
Here.
Semp,
Here.
Zuccaro.
Here.
Very good. Can you please confirm we are in compliance with the Iowa Open Meetings Law?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, in front of you are meeting minutes from our previous meeting on October the 5th. At this point, I would entertain any modifications or a motion for approval.
A motion to approve the minutes for October 5th, 2022?
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Travis, if you would.
Kemp,
Aye.
Norton, Christ,
Aye.
Russell,
Here.
Semp,
Aye. Aye.
Zuccaro,
Aye.
and Mulligan.
I will abstain. Okay, so this evening we have two items on our agenda, one being an action item, one being a public hearing. Being that I am associated with the first item, I am going to recuse myself and turn it over to Vice Chair. There you go.
All right, thanks, Matt. The first action item is a preliminary plat for Mosina Farms subdivision. And the applicant is Axiom Consultants. The way we're going to deal with this action item is a little bit of a deviation from normal. We're going to allow for a period of questions from the audience and a chance for the staff and the applicant to respond to those questions. And then if there's any follow-up questions based on those responses, we'll entertain those also. But first, we'll allow the applicant to make their presentation.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Russell. So Matthew Mulligan, 1167 Hunters Ridge, here on behalf of Switch Homes. Our engineer is Axiom Consultants, who is listed here. So what I am requesting tonight is an approval of the preliminary plat for what is being referred to as Mosina Farms. This is located up off of the Northwest Arterial on the south side. Roughly, well, you can see it in front of you on the screen there. It's about a half a mile-ish to the east of JFK and the Arterial. This has come before you one time as a rezoning. Originally, this was an ag parcel, rezoned into R1 as well as an R4 designation down along 32nd Street. In doing so, the request was made at a council meeting that a traffic study be completed prior to moving forward with the submission of the preliminary plat. That was indeed completed, and so I would ask if we could potentially turn to, it's notated as page 1 of the Anderson Bogert. Boy, it's about 20 pages, guys, into your packet. But it's labeled as the executive summary, and I'm going to read just a quick piece of it. Actually, it's on your screen as well, the bottom paragraph, just so we can touch base regarding the traffic itself. So Tiffany Court is very lightly traveled today and has more than enough capacity available to service the additional traffic from Mosina Farms development, which we're discussing this evening. Under existing conditions, Tiffany Court operates at good level of service with minimal or non-existent delays. Under opening day conditions, just adding the site-generated traffic to the traffic currently on Tiffany Court, the level of service remains at nearly identical levels, and any change would be unnoticeable to the average driver. Expectations of additional traffic delay are less than 1% and much lower on Brook and Blazon. So I wanted to highlight that. Also, if possible, if we could take a quick peek at the layout for a second, specifically the plat itself, Sheena.
Mm-hmm.
So the original request, as I said, was a rezoning request, and quite a bit of information was made available than what is typically brought before the commission. Specifically, there was a layout of lots, and that was really to put some context around what was going to be occurring. As we went through the engineering of it with the city of Dubuque and their each respective divisions, originally this was 105 homes. We actually shifted the entry point to the west a little bit, and in doing so, we actually lost 4 lots. So this is actually 101 homes, but that move was made for a variety of reasons, one of them being that the sight line was just a touch better as we moved it to the west. And as you read through the traffic study itself, there is a recommendation that there is actually it wasn't recommended, however, it is going to occur. There's going to be obviously a right in, right out, but there will be a deceleration as well as an acceleration lane coming out of the community onto Northwest Arterial. So with that said, all the information is in your packet, the bulk of it being the traffic study. As I read the large part of the summary there, or rather a large part of the executive summary as it relates specifically to Tiffany Court and the surrounding roads. I hope you'll consider the preliminary plat for Mazzina Farms. So with that, any questions for me?
Commission members, any questions for Mr. Mulligan?
Yeah, I do have one question. Obviously, you're well aware traffic is the main issue here. What stage would the right-in, right-out on the arterial, is that being proposed? I'm assuming this is a phase development, and is there a threshold you have in mind as to,
Yep.
X number of units, triggers, we got to have that right-in, right-out?
So the right-in, right-out will be a part of Phase 1. And if you look on the second, I'm sorry, so it's page 3 of 3 of the plat itself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, I feel like it's shaded on mine, but, so you can see where that proposed deceleration and acceleration lane. So the intention is that the entrance will be built, so Phase 1, more than likely, is going to be everything that's to the north. So there's 56 lots on the north side, and there's 45, in the back. And so everything along the arterial and then behind it, of course. So for example, lots 1 through 11, and then also maybe if you flip one more page, Sheena.
1 through 11 through 18.
Sorry, yeah. So really everything from, see those 2 ponds, the detention ponds there? So everything to the south, that's gonna be Phase 2.
Okay.
But the deceleration and acceleration lanes will go in with Phase 1.
Thank you.
Okay?
Any other questions from the commission? All right, we'll move on to the staff report. Sorry.
So thank you, Vice Chair Russell. Sheena Moon, Associate Planner. So I'm just going to hit the highlights for this proposal as well. And so as we know, this is the preliminary plat for Pomozina Farm. I think it's important to kind of start off just kind of highlighting where we are in the process of this review. So I'm going to skip ahead one slide and just talk a little bit about the history and how we've come to today. So the Zoning Advisory Commission originally reviewed and recommended approval for the rezoning in May of this year, May 4th, 2022. And the City Council further reviewed the request, and on July 5th of this year, they conditionally approved the rezoning that a traffic study be conducted. That was the specific language within that approval. And so before the applicant was able to move forward with a preliminary plat, that traffic study needed to be concluded and it needed to be finished to the satisfaction of the city's engineering department. There is very much a back and forth discussion with a consultant that does traffic studies. The city evaluates in detail Did they, take into consideration the correct peak hours? Did they take into consideration the regional impact on adjacent, major intersections and things of that nature? And then, of course, is it actually able to service, the roadways that are existing, and/or are there new roadways needed to provide adequate to and from for this development? So that traffic study, and again, I'll just highlight these here. So one of the pieces that I know has come up in discussion is this, in the concept plan during the rezoning, there was shown a connection down to 32nd Street from the western side of the development. So that intersection, and I believe this was stated during that review, was being evaluated by city staff. City engineering did look at that. They did determine that there is not adequate sight distance to have a safe intersection at that location on 32nd Street. That has to do with the curvature of 32nd Street itself, as well as it's a very steep sloping hill. And so that's a concern as well with how safe that would be for that intersection at that location. And as a result of that determination, that is why we're not seeing that intersection proposed on the plat at this point in time. So the traffic study itself, as I said, it took a look at the regional, some of the adjacent the impacts to adjacent intersections, as well as Tiffany Court in particular. It looked at, 4 different neighboring intersections and studied 4 traffic scenarios for both AM and peak hours of commuter time. The study also examined the level of service, and the applicant alluded to this during his report. There are certain levels of service that need to be met in order for it to be adequate. So it took a look at the different levels of service for both Tiffany Court, Bruick, Blazen, as well as the Northwest Arterial. And out of that, determination of a right-in, right-out on the Northwest Arterial was determined to be satisfactory to service this community. And we also identified that it warranted having an acceleration and a deacceleration lane on the Northwest Arterial in order to safely provide access to and from the development. So as I mentioned, that has been reviewed. The traffic study and analysis has been reviewed and has been accepted by the city engineering department, which satisfies the condition of approval per the city council requirement. One thing that I think is important to note, and I know that there may have been some questions from the public on this, is that this study did not take into consideration any potential development that would happen to the east of this property or to the north across the Northwest Arterial. And the reason for that is, quite frankly, we don't know what those would be yet. So without having a concept or some type of data to analyze, we wouldn't require an applicant to do a traffic study on something that could potentially be. Future development may warrant traffic consideration, it may not for those different developments, depending on what ends up actually potentially being developed there. So that's just something to note. So the important thing tonight to note is that the Zoning Advisory Commission is being charged with reviewing the preliminary plat. The Unified Development Code says that the commission should review it for compliance with city codes, as well as compliance and consistency with the city's comprehensive plan. So those are the 2 charges that are before the commission tonight. A little bit about the project, I'll keep this very brief. It's about a little over 80 acres. There's 101 single family lots and 2 multifamily residential lots that would be accessed down off of 32nd. The streets in this development would be dedicated to the city. There are a number of outlots, and I'm going to flip to the plat itself here. A number of outlots on the plat here. Some of them for detention, some of them for open space, some of them for community gardens. The intent is to dedicate a lot to the city for parkland. And then also there is a lot in there for a lift station for the sanitary sewer. So those are the 2 pieces that would be part of that. Regarding code review, the city's development review team, which is comprised of all major reviewing departments, so engineering, planning, water department, sanitary sewer looks at this, traffic engineers, construction and inspection services, have reviewed this plat and have found it to be in conformance with the codes, the city codes, the applicable city codes. The plat is also in compliance with the city's comprehensive plan, which does promote infill development, mixed-use development. And so that is consistent with that as well. I'm just pulling my page open here to find the other. So I wanted to just note some of the, I guess, criteria, if you will, from the comprehensive plan. So foster development of new and additional housing products in suitable locations throughout the city. Integrate new development into the natural environment by protecting significant woodland, prairie, and wetland areas and avoiding steep slopes. Encourage a mix of housing affordable for all segments of Dubuque's population throughout the community. And so I also want to just bring to light that there has been written requests, and Vice Chair Russell already alluded to this, but there's been written requests tonight to have some public input. And then there's also one particular neighboring resident who is unable to attend tonight and asked that this letter be read into the record. And so I will go ahead and do that now. So, dear members of the Zoning Commission and City Council, we first wish to express that we appreciate the work Wally and others in the Planning Department have performed since the July 5th City Council meeting. Since I am unable to attend the November meeting, zoning meeting regarding the Switch Homes development, I request this be read at the meeting during public input. Today, on October 28th, 2022, we received the preliminary plat and traffic study that we had hoped would have been completed shortly after Labor Day as originally expected, and had hoped to review much sooner than 3 business days prior to the November 2nd zoning meeting. After a quick review, our concerns with access remain the same and have certainly and reasonably increased due to the new information that has come up since this item was last discussed during the July 5th City Council meeting. The new information includes, but is not limited to, the following. The Dubuque School Board approving the sale of the Dubuque Soccer Complex to Court One. We don't need to spell out the increased traffic a year-round facility that includes both indoor and outdoor sports will have on the JFK/West 32nd Street intersection that was not included in this traffic study. It is our understanding that the Planning Department has had numerous requests going back to July 2022 from Jim Gantz to meet so he can express his interest in developing his property directly north of the Mosina Switch Farms with intent to add additional housing. This should certainly be considered in the big picture, so the city does not need to fix something that could have been already planned for. The preliminary plat shows 2 stub streets on the far east side, and everyone knows by now that the approximate 100-acre Ehrlich Farm / Finnan property that connects to Switch Homes / Mosina Farms will eventually be connected, and the stub streets will then be connected, and likely an additional 100 or more homes will be added to the already increased traffic flow that eventually funnels into Tiffany Court. Again, we ask that you look at the big picture and do not make the mistake of making short-term decisions that cause a long-term mistake. In summary, we are requesting the Mosina Farm Switch Home development include a full access, both right and left turn on the arterial, and or at a minimum, an additional access to the West 32nd Street versus Tiffany Court access. Thank you for your time and consideration. Eric Lucy, representing the Tiffany Court, Blazen, Bruick Road, as well as portions of the West 32nd Street and Arbor Oak neighborhood, 2736 Tiffany Court, Dubuque, Iowa. So with that, we are happy to answer any questions that may be still of concern.
Right. I would propose that we limit the questions to a 15-minute period. Then after your questions are asked, we will give the staff and applicant, if applicable, a chance to address those questions. And then we'll allow for 5 minutes after that to ask any follow-up questions that were generated by the responses. Right, we'll step right up and begin the questioning.
Honorable Chairman, members of the Commission, I'm Chad Cox. I live at 2742 Tiffany Court. I don't really have any questions. I have some comments and input I'd like to offer as this commission wrestles with assessing this preliminary plat. And by way of background, could I tell you that at our original meeting, we wanted to talk about the conditions that this would create on Tiffany Court, and we were told at that time that that was only a zoning decision and that access issues would be addressed later on. So,
And that's why we're allowing questions tonight.
okay. And that's fine. Mine aren't in the form of
I
questions.
agree with your recollection.
Okay. And I appreciate this opportunity to stand before you and offer some thoughts about this preliminary plat. I'm here to request that the plat not be approved unless and until arrangements have been made for better access to the subdivision. Tiffany Court is a quiet subdivision consisting of approximately 25 homes. It's been that way since its construction in the early 1990s. The Mozina Farms Switch Home subdivision calls for the building of more than 100 homes east of our subdivision. Based on the recent traffic study that you've all seen, we now know what that means. 3/4 of all of the Switch Home subdivision traffic is going to come down Tiffany Court. The other quarter will presumably, according to the traffic study, go up to the arterial. That means, according to the traffic study and their estimation of average daily traffic, that will amount to 800 vehicle trips up and down Tiffany Court every day. We believe that that is unfair, and we believe it's avoidable, and we're asking that the plat not be approved as it's currently drawn. This city wants and needs affordable homes, and we get that. But we submit to you that it's an unfair burden to dump all that traffic onto Tiffany Court, Bruick Road, and Blossom Drive. Other options exist, and they should be explored. You have the power, and we are imploring that you find a solution that spreads the burden of this development more equally amongst all Dubuquers rather than dumping it on a small number of residents that have lived on a quiet street for over 25 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for the commission or the staff? Please state your name and address. Thanks.
Yes, my name is Jim Gantz. I live at 12241 Forest Meadow Drive in Dubuque, Iowa, 52001. I own the 43 acres directly north of the Switch Home development. The 83 acres for Switch Homes was purchased from my family. So we originally owned both parcels. So I've just got comments. I'm also interested in developing my 43 acres. I have tried to I've made this known to the city staff early on, and it all hinges around the access to the Northwest Arterial. I have an IDOT access permit at Station 73+00 to the Northwest Arterial. It is a direct access permit to my property. Switch Homes also enjoys that same access permit at Station 7300. We originally owned that whole farm before the Northwest Arterial was ever built. And the DOT, we made them do an entire take on the farm because it was partitioning it so badly. When the Northwest Arterial was completed then, the excess property was offered back. The price we paid was for development property. We told them clearly that we were not interested in purchasing, the remainder property unless it had access to the Northwest Arterial. That is why our patent, they call it a patent when it comes from the IDOT, not a deed, shows a legal access at Station 73+00. So when the concept plat for Switch Homes first came out, and it showed an access at Station 7300, but it showed it right in, right out. Now, I have worked with Bob Schiesel from city staff, even before Switch Homes purchased our property, letting him know that we have a legal right to full access at that station. It was very, very clear to me. City staff made it very clear that they did not want an intersection. They did not want another intersection on the Northwest Arterial. That was made very, very clear. And in fact, Bob Schiesel questioned that if I had a legal right at that station. So I submitted the patent to him and showed him that indeed we do. So now, I guess the point I'd like to make, the Switch Home Development's this preliminary plat showing a right-in, right-out access to the Northwest Arterial may adversely affect my access to the Northwest Arterial. Their current right-in, right-out was originally, as I said in the concept, was at station 7300. Well, now it's been moved approximately 500 foot west. Now, Matt indicates that's because of site distance and whatnot, which may be true. I question whether it was really moved because the city didn't want to do battle with me over my access rights. They didn't want to do something, if they put a right-in, right-out at station 7300, it would make my access a right-in, right-out as well. So that, I guess the next point I'd like to make, my development hinges on IDOT access. So let me tell you what my development is. I would like to put multifamily residential on my property. That's the business I'm in. I've developed over 100 units in Dubuque, in Davenport, and Cedar Rapids. It's what I do, and it's the perfect development for that property. My desire is to construct 100 to 300 workforce market rent apartments on my property. So, I believe that my rights to develop my property are just as important as Switch Homes. But, this preliminary plat, if this is approved, is going to adversely, it would derail my development. So, and I honestly have a real issue with the traffic study that was done. Now, city staff says, well, we didn't look at the property to the north, we didn't look at the property to the east. That's certainly not future thinking. My gosh, what do you think is going to happen to the property to the east of it? It's going to be single-family residential. So, and now mine is a little more difficult. Different from the Switch Homes. I mean, they can get access off of West 32nd Street. There is no other way to access my property other than that Northwest Arterial. It's a valley there. There's just no way. So now I would ask you not to approve this preliminary plat until this access question is addressed. It was a struggle to get the city staff to sit down with me and discuss my plans. I've let them know all along that, hey, I want to develop my property too, and what you're doing with Switch Homes could adversely affect me. I finally got a meeting with the city staff scheduled for November 15th. I had to copy the city manager on it and ask him, can you please ask city staff to schedule a meeting with me? I get a response from the city attorney saying, oh, well, if you have development plans, bring them to us. Well, I can't bring you development plans until you sit down with me and discuss what I'd like to do. So, I mean, that's all I have to say. Do you have any questions of me?
Any questions from the commission? All right, thanks, Mr. Gantz.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question or two? All right, we'll close the questioning period and give staff a chance to address any questions or comments they'd like to try to address.
Sure, so I think with respect to the actual traffic study itself, and I understand the concern from the public with respect to wanting to evaluate everything at once, and I'm sorry, I can't speak to the discussions around the access on the Northwest Arterial, that really lies with the engineering department. So I've not been privy to all of that, those conversations or that information. So I apologize, I can't speak to that this evening, or as to why maybe Mr. Gantz has been having a hard time getting a meeting. I apologize for that on behalf of our staff if we were ever a cog in that train, but nonetheless, so I can't speak to that, but I can say that the city's approach to evaluating development has always, to some extent, has started with some type of conceptual discussion. And so, as I mentioned before, this traffic study that was reviewed by the city and approved accepted by the engineering department does not take into consideration those adjacent developments. And the reason is because we don't know what will go there. Now, I understand that there are adjacent property owners who are making plans and working towards that. But at this point in time, when we're being asked to evaluate this application, this project, this concept layout, this preliminary plat, we do not know what will be adjacent. And so, so it makes it difficult to, I understand that the thought of wanting to really think forward and think big picture, it makes it a little difficult to theorize, like to think what could be there, what could, to conceptualize what could potentially be there when we don't know what we need to evaluate. With that, I don't know that I heard any other specific questions that I would maybe be able to put to bed outside of just sharing the facts that I've shared already this evening with the commission.
All right. I would like to say one thing about the traffic study also, or maybe two things. Mr. Cox's comments were concerning the other access to West 32nd. It was originally considered, I think, by the traffic consultants, but the city said it wouldn't be allowed. So I think the developer is unable to provide that access. And that's the same thing with the access to the Northwest Arterial. And Mr. Gantz had sort of addressed that, where he's been told that right in, right out is the only thing the city staff is going to recommend approval on. So I'm sure the developer in this case is hamstrung by the same restrictions. And I guess there's three things. The third thing is the traffic study did briefly address the development of the soccer complex property, in that they found out that the city staff is going to require a signalization of West 32nd and JFK because of that development, but not because of this development. This development didn't impact the intersection enough to generate the signals on its own, but the traffic from the new soccer development would. And with that,
I'm sorry, Vice Chair Russell, if I could just add one additional piece. So yes, I wanted to provide that same clarification piece with regards to that there is conceptual development for property closer to 32nd and JFK. And there has been a traffic study conducted as a part of that has confirmed that a signaled intersection will be needed at that location. So I think that's definitely worth noting. And then I think the other thing worth noting is just in general that, Tiffany Court has been a very quiet street for a very long time, and I completely respect the residents and their position with wanting it to remain that way. And I think the challenge that the city's being tasked with is trying to balance the rights of others to develop in their properties with also trying to maintain the neighborhoods that are livable and viable. So I think this is part of the reason why the traffic study was initiated. I think the council really felt that would be an appropriate way to see, is there going to be an impact in traffic that exceeds the level of service that Tiffany Court, Brewick, and Blazen can provide. And the traffic study is telling us at this point that those streets would be able to accommodate the traffic. And I just want to make that clear that that's where that interpretation is coming from. So,
all right, with that, does the commission Do commission members have any questions for the staff?
Yeah, I have a question, or maybe it's a comment, but I think it's a question.
Put it in the form of a question.
Okay. Sheena, can you just clarify too on the Northwest Arterial why that they don't want to signalize that given the nature of the arterial and why that is right in, right out, not a signalized intersection?
Yeah, so I can do my best. That that determination sits with the city engineering department. The Northwest Arterial was designed to be a thoroughfare to maintain traffic speeds of a higher level than most other streets throughout the community. Obviously, it's really meant to move people quickly from one to the other, and so there has been. It is clear to us in planning too that there is not a desire to add any additional four-way intersections on the Northwest Arterial, at least at this time. There's nothing that is warranting that. So that's really the big driver, and because of that, and I can't speak to the additional minutia as to why that would be the case. I would leave that to engineers to fill in that data. But generally speaking, it's to maintain traffic speeds along that roadway. And to make sure that it continues to flow at a smooth rate. So that's really where that interpretation is coming out of the engineering side as well.
Great. Can I ask another question? It was also mentioned that the potential access to 32nd Street would be dangerous, right? Because of line of sight and the slope of the hill on 32nd Street. So I just want to clarify again that there is no, can you confirm, is there no way to provide access via 32nd Street into the development?
So it is our understanding that there is not a safe point for this development to provide access directly to 32nd Street.
Great. Thank you. That's my only question.
Thanks. Anybody else have any questions for staff?
I guess I just got a comment. Traffic studies, the way they generally work is, for example, a developer does a study for their property. You know, and as things develop, whether it's next month, next year, 10 years down the road, when the adjacent people develop their plans, then they add on to that study when there's actually firm plans, like you said. And it would be, if I guess ultimately from, you know, I've been involved in several traffic studies. If you wanted to actually project to some of these adjacent properties, it would be a wild guess, and it would be actually destroy the validity of the traffic study for the subject parcel, if that makes any sense. So I guess I'm not necessarily trying to sway one way or another. I'm just trying to say, hey, look, this traffic study, first of all, one, it's as valid as possible. It was submitted to the city. The city went back and forth, and I have nothing to do with this project, but based on past projects, the city has their outside consultants review it. They pass it back to the consultant who did this, and it goes back and forth a couple times with comments, and everything gets hashed out and addressed. So I, you know, based on the process, I think that the study is extremely valid, and you know, it does show that there's, based on this development, there's going to be very little impact on delays on Tiffany Court. You know, again, I don't know why it was called Tiffany Court when it's always been a dead-end street that's been intended to be extended. I was the design engineer for Tiffany Court when it was developed, and that's always been the intent, going back 20, 25 years. Well, actually, it was in 1993 or 94. Anyway, so just a few comments.
Anyone else have questions, comments? All right, with that, we'll move on to entertaining a motion and a second by the commission.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat as recommended by city staff.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Travis?
Russell,
Aye.
Sempf,
Aye.
Zucaro,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Kemp,
Aye.
Christ.
Aye.
Mulligan abstained.
Okay, we're going to move on to the second item here is a public hearing. Let's see, located at 1660 and 1670 Asbury Road. Is our applicant here this evening?
Bob.
Very good.
Evening, Bob Felderman, Dubuque. I'm associated with General Bob Realty. I listed and sold the properties here, the doghouse business and the bar and these two buildings. The new owner, Sebastian Rogers, is, as soon as he had accepted offer on it, was getting phone calls, people wanting to rent these properties as houses. And the adjoining property to it, 1690, is actually zoned office residential. And I believe that my understanding is that one, that zoning, the city has been trying to get away from. So office commercial would allow the property to be used as a rental on the main and the upper floors. Right now, it only is allowed to be used for residential on the upper floors. And he has tenants, actually, they're very interested in renting it once he goes in and rehabs one of them. And that's where the property outlook is going. That's what the neighborhood is. The mixed use, that's what the new owner hopes to do with it. And with that, he's unable to make it, sends his regrets, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any questions for our applicant regarding his request? Thank you, Bob. Okay, so being that this is a public, being that this is a public item, we'll open it up, and I will close it for public hearing. So with that, staff report, Sheena?
Assistant Planner
Oh,
Travis
excuse
Troublesome.
me.
So the applicant is rezoning from C2 to OC, which is office commercial, in the hopes of having residential on the first floor. Both of these properties were originally constructed as residences, but were zoned to business dating back to 1932. Over time, they have been rezoned to the OR district, and then OR mixed with single family. And most recently, or finally in 1990 and 1998, each was rezoned to the existing C2 district. They have both had a mixture of residences and businesses in them. Currently, or most recently, there's a tattoo parlor in the southern one and an office in the northern one. The parking lots were added as commercial space, and I know in 2006, I believe, the parking lot was a conditional use at 1670. So that parking is available for all those people. It is all owned by the same property owner, all the way down to the Doghouse and Donut Boy, which is, again, just south of those two parcels. As a mixed-use neighborhood, over time, it does make sense. Staff doesn't have any concerns with the mixed-use nature in this area. It is somewhat divided by separated from the residences to the east. There's a 15-foot grade change there, and there's an unplatted but unimproved alley, and that has some trees and things there. And that's all the way across that area around the corner. That area is going to be redeveloped with a roundabout in the future, just to the south there. But the C2 and the OC districts are pretty similar in nature and intensity. Staff does not anticipate any negative impacts from that rezoning. There are approximately 12,500 vehicle trips along Asbury at this location, and that's not anticipated to change either. And overall, the rezoning should have little impact on the neighborhood. And we had no public input, and that is, I believe, all I have for you, unless you have questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Travis? Very good. If there's no other conversations, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we recommend rezoning the properties at 1660 and 1670 Asbury Road from C2 Neighborhood Shopping Center to OC Office Commercial.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second, if you would.
It's up to you.
I'm up. Christ.
Aye.
Kemp.
Aye.
Wetzel.
Aye.
Norton.
Aye.
Senf.
Aye.
Zakara.
Aye.
Mulligan.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Thank you for coming this evening. Sheena, this will go before council? Is that-
Yes, this will go for council on October 7th, next Monday.
November.
Yes. I should also add, and I apologize for not mentioning this earlier, but the preliminary plat that you reviewed is not required to go on for review by the city council. We do, as a matter of just kind of making council aware, include preliminary plats on consent agendas. So just know that that will be on the consent agenda for the October 7th meeting date as well.
Okay, very good. All right, anything from the public? Seeing none. Any items from the commission to discuss? Okay, staff?
I just want to take a minute to introduce everyone to this gentleman here, Matt O'Brien, who is our new planning technician in the office. So you'll be seeing him from time to time. So welcome, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Welcome. Nothing like putting him on the spot. That's all I have.
Okay. That said,
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
adjourned. Thank you.